Yeah, so I've played with some of my friends recently on Smite, and they play mostly arena and things like that. And I think that the conquest game mode and the meta in general is a little bit hard to get into right off the bat. So I figured I'd make them a video so that they can kind of understand how the game works and things like that. And then maybe even go into the roles individually. So this will be one or two, maybe even three, like video parts. Like I don't think it should be that many, unless I decide to make a video for each role. But I don't think that's necessary. So we'll see how that goes. So starting off, this is a conquest map. This side will be chaos. This side would be order. And when I'm referring to lanes as left, middle, right, I'm referring from the order side. So if you're chaos, this is all going to be backwards, and you'll know your order or chaos. If you're order, your towers, phoenixes, etc. will be blue, and if you're chaos, they'll be red or orange or whatever color it looks like to you. So in this left-hand lane, it's your duo lane. You'll have your support and your ADC there. The support is usually a guardian. Definitely you can use other warriors, assassins, things like that, whatever works for you as a support, but in general guardians are the best supports. And then your ADC is your hunter, and the whole point of the ADC is to have good auto attack damage. It's good for objective pushes, it's good for objective secures, things like that, just because it's sustainable damage that you're not going to run out of mana to use it. You're not going to have to wait on a cooldown, things like that. You'll just be able to auto attack forever. So that will be in the duo lane. The reason we do this is because the support has really good early game, as far as like damage and just sustain in lane and things like that, as opposed to the ADC, who early game they really lack because you don't have any of those auto attack items online. There are some ADCs such as like Chiron and Nathan, stuff like that, that are really good early, but they're still want to get to late game. That's your point as an ADC, and the support's there to make sure they get to late game. Just to make sure that they live, make sure that they get the farm they need, etc. And then your mid lane, right here, is where you'll have your mages. You generally, again, most of these roles people can play off-color shit in it, and it works just fine. But I'm just giving you the general basics. So in your mid lane, you'll have your mages, like Zeus, Raijin, whoever you feel like. And the goal of the mid lane is to basically just clear waves as fast as you can, and then rotate to certain jungle camps to help out your jungler, such as your red buff, which is here. The mid camps you'll usually share with the jungler, and then once you get a little bit higher level of play, even the supports will start rotating over to help you out in mid, especially in the new meta where mages are really strong. A lot of mages are building Doom Orb, which is you need to make sure that mage stays safe to get those Doom Orb stacks and keep those Doom Orb stacks. So mid lane is a really high activity area. So if you're in mid, don't worry too much about people running through your lane all the time, because it's the center of the map. And then solo lane is this right lane. It's the short lane. We call when you're referring to the duo or solo is the short lane because of the distance between the two towers. It's a lot easier to see on the map when the towers are actually like a color, but the long lane, you can notice the towers are a lot farther away. And then your solo laners usually are warriors. Again, this is every other role. You can use other things here and it works just fine, but right now in the meta, warriors are really strong. So playing not a warrior in solo lane is really, really like almost suicide for your lane. And then the fifth role, as you notice, there's no other lane, is the jungler. And the jungler's job is to clear. You're going to get most of your XP from these jungle camps, the red buff, the blue buff, the mid harpies, the back camps, etc. As well as sharing waves in lane with your duo, your mid, or your solo lane. Most of your wave share will be in mid lane. You'll be hanging out in mid lane a lot, just because it's the center of the area. If you need to do your red buff, you're fairly close to it in mid lane. If you need to do your blue buff, you're still fairly close to it in mid lane. You're close to both of the mid camps. You have good lines to your back harpies, things like that. And again, in the meta where your mid lane mages are really strong and need to be protected, it's really good to have the jungler there. So now, as far as what the laning phase is, there's kind of three phases in the game. One is the laning phase, then you have your mid game, and then you have your end game. The point of the laning phase is just to get you up in level, just to clear clear creeps that are coming down the lane, clear your camps, your jungle camps, and if you can get a kill, great. But the whole goal of the laning phase is just to kill minions until you get to your level. to about 10 to 13 to 15, depending on what lane you're in. So you really just, like, you're going to be in lane, just killing creeps all day. And then when your creep wave's done, you're going to go and kill some jungle camps. It can be kind of boring, but usually you've got a lane opponent who's right up there with you, trying to poke you out. You're trying to poke them out. So I mean, it sounds boring that early game you're just clearing creeps and PvEing and shit, but you still have a lot of PvP. And then once you get to mid game, your ADC and your solo will still be farming, because that's essentially the left and right lanes turn into solo farm lanes. Because your ADC just needs to get to end game as fast as possible, and your solo lane is usually the same thing. And then mid game, the support, the jungler, and the mid lane will all kind of group up and kind of run around trying to push objectives. One thing I haven't covered right now is the Gold Fury that's here, and the Fire Giant that's here. What the Gold Fury does is when you kill it, it gives your team-wide gold and XP. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a worthy amount. Gold Fury can really push a lead in either way with whoever gets it, especially in the early game. And then Fire Giant, what that does is it's the same. It gives your team-wide XP. I believe it gives you gold as well, not as much as the Gold Fury, but it does give you a bit. But it also gives you a buff. And the Fire Giant buff is really powerful. I don't have, like, something to hover over to actually explain what it does. But essentially what it does is it gives you a bunch of, like, healing, gives you a bunch of mana regen, gives you a bunch of damage, etc., etc. Makes you amazing at killing towers, killing phoenixes, and killing a titan. That's what it's for, essentially, is you get Fire Giant to siege the enemy base and win the game. Now, that's where the end game comes in. Your end game focus, if all the towers are still up, the phoenixes are still up, etc., etc., you're looking to push objectives in the end game. You're looking to group up as a 5-man and just force your way into a tower, force your way into a phoenix, force a Fire Giant, force a Gold Fury, whatever. So you're going to group up and try to look for a pick. That's the best way to secure a Gold Fury or a Fire Giant or even a tower, is just to get a pick onto somebody. And if it's, you know, somebody that's caught out, somebody that makes a dumb play, somebody that misplays, and you just pick them off and kill them. And that's the goal for trying to get the Gold Fury or the Fire Giant. Now, I mean, this isn't always going to happen. I mean, you're not always just going to be able to find one player being an idiot and kill him. The other way to do it is just to pull the Gold Fury or Fire Giant and reset it to force the other team to say, okay, hey, they're doing Gold Fury. We need to go. And you're forcing a fight. You're saying either you come fight us or we're going to get this Gold Fury. And generally you only want to do that if you think you have a good chance of winning, or if the game's dead even. And that's essentially what that is. One thing that you also need to worry about in Conquest, it's not really a thing in other game modes near as much. I mean, it still happens, but it's not near as important, is warding. What ward is it's a consumable you buy in the same place you buy health or mana pots. And all it does is you put it down. So if I put it down here, and I'm way over here, my whole team will have vision of right here in the area that the ward is placed. It's just like if you had a god standing there. So if an enemy walks past it and your camera is looking that way on the minimap, you'll see them. Or not on the minimap, excuse me. If you're over in solo looking this way, you'll kind of see like the red outline that shows up when you can see people on the map. You'll also see an icon on the map that like kind of moves with them, so you'll know where they're going, what they're doing. If you use your tab menu, you can see what items they have. Just things like that. Wards are essentially having a god placed in a position that's just looking somewhere all times, in the form of a 50 gold consumable. And then a sentry ward is 120 gold, and it's the same thing as a ward, other than it allows you to see enemy wards and clear them. So if you see somebody place down a ward over here, then you can just place a sentry ward there and clear it. It's pretty simple. It's not too big a deal. And essentially that's the basics of Conquest, as far as what that is. As far as the actual individual roles, there are a lot more. I can't really explain to you what every role does in this kind of a guide. I'd have to go through it individually. So if you guys have any preferences on roles you would like to see quickly, let me know, and then I'll get that going on that. But for now, that's the basics of Conquest. It sounds really daunting, but once you kind of get in it and learn the meta and learn what's good, what's not good, learn what you're supposed to be doing, etc., it's really not that bad. So.